The fiat currency world is coming down, and now the old powers are trying to go after crypto. Here's how crypto is going to fundamentally transform the way people and money interface with governments. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the news lately, but stuff has been a little crazy. From tons of inflation, debt, etc. on the part of governments around the world, to new crackdowns and restrictions on cryptocurrency, to the boom of cryptocurrency. You can clearly see that the old world and the new world are coming to a head. They're on a collision course, and we're going to live through some pretty crazy times pretty soon.
Inflation is rising globally, causing prices to spike for average consumers, while salaries and income just haven't kept up. Tax authorities in the US are now demanding reporting on anyone with an account balance of $600 or more. There are struggles between large employers and their employees on certain health mandates.
Most voices on this subject, by the way, seem to fall into one of two camps. They either think that crypto is going to be banned. That's the boomer angle, right? They're just going to ban all crypto, get rid of it. Once it gets too dangerous, the government shuts it down and it goes away forever. Boo-hoo. Or the other one, which is the sort of ANCAP utopia type one, the anarchist utopia, where the prediction is government can't stop crypto and therefore government will just collapse, and they won't be able to control the money. They won't be able to do anything. We're going to get rid of government. And it's probably neither of those two things. Yes, I do think crypto is revolutionary. Yes, I do think it's going to dump a lot of old systems on their head. It's going to cause a lot of destructive, constructive change. At the same time, I don't really think that the old systems are just going to be completely gone. I think they'll morph in a certain way. And that, of course, includes stuff like taxes. I don't think that having crypto is just going to make no one ever pay taxes again. At least not in the short term. I don't think that's realistic. But what it will do probably is evolve the way taxes work in our societies. Now, of course, I always give disclaimers about none of this is price stuff or whatever. And of course, it's hard to interpret what I say to be that kind of stuff. But especially here, for a legal disclaimer, this is not at all legal advice or really advice at all. I'm just speaking on a geopolitical standpoint, basically seeing how public policy might be shaped in the future, making my guesses on that. But I'm not saying this is going to happen, that's going to happen, you should do this, you should do that. So, as always, this is just educational. Make sure you remember that, okay? No suit, please. The first way that crypto is going to affect the financial system, of course, is currency choice. We haven't had choice in currency kind of ever in recent memory. Maybe in the past and hundreds of years ago, but right now, we finally have the choice to basically switch between different monies depending on what we like or don't like. Before, whatever the legal tender of the land was, that's just what you had to use. Just, sorry, that is what it is. Now, you can use cryptocurrencies, and not just Bitcoin. There's a bunch of other ones you can just freely switch around to and from. And I don't think that this is going to change. I don't think that there's going to be like, okay, well, we're going to get rid of all but like one or two, but it'll be at least a few that people will be able to use in their daily life. And just having that choice, even if all the currencies are in some way regulated by the government, even if none of them let you avoid paying taxes or whatever, just the fact that there's multiple ones out there to choose from will inherently make each of them better. Marketplace competition doesn't just allow you to pick a better option. It also makes all the options better.
There have been alternative currency attempts in the past, but they've all met an untimely end because they've been primitive and centrally controlled. That's why crypto is so great. Anyone can make a new money thousands of times over with no startup capital and no physical identity. You can't just stop them all, or even most of them.
The second big way crypto's transforming the way we use money today is inflation. That's the number one reason, I think, why a lot of people started to really gravitate towards cryptocurrency, starting with, of course, Bitcoin, was the 21 million sacred limit, that there will never be over 21 million, and therefore your wealth is secure because no one's going to just inflate it away into nothing. And with, of course, fiat currencies, there's constant inflation. Of course, it's a lot higher than it actually should be. And so whatever value you have, people dilute the supply, the issuers dilute the supply, and then they keep that. They don't just dilute it and give you the delusion. They keep it. And so it's basically a stealth tax, stealing from you. This is pretty well known kind of stuff, but it bears repeating here. And just the ability to have a cryptocurrency, a different currency with the precedent set of this is final, there is a completely limited supply, it will end emission at some point. That's just going to completely evolve the concept of inflation as we know it. Now, this is not to say that cryptocurrency is immune from inflation. It's a big part of all cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, where new coins get created all the time, and therefore the supply gets diluted. Some are worse than others, of course. There are some that have high and infinite inflation, and just because it says it's crypto doesn't mean it's like scarce and valuable. But even things like Bitcoin have been kicking out coins at a rate beyond what the US dollar has been doing for several years. It tapers off over time. And right now it's below the US dollar inflation rate, and it's going to keep on going down and eventually to zero. That's kind of the big thing. And the other thing, though, is the inflation with, let's just say, government. They take those new coins created, they take the new money created and spend on whatever they want. They take it away from you. Whereas with a lot of crypto systems, you can mine or stake or whatever else you do, and you can take part of that inflation to yourself, sometimes even more than the total percentage. So it's not that the inflation itself is necessarily bad, it's just that it takes away from you. And if you can participate in that, if there's systems like this out there, then it's not as big of a problem. It's going to kind of shift away from that. Third is censorship. Cryptocurrencies are much harder to censor than traditional forms of fiat currency, because with fiat currency, everything goes through a bank or a payment processor or something like that, and they can just say, no, you can't use it for this, you can't use it for that, and just cut it off. With cryptocurrency, that's not how it works, at least not actually decentralized ones, right? You can just send money to anyone, and they can't do anything to stop it. It's just pretty much like that. You basically have to control the entire decentralized architecture. You basically have to control the entire decentralized architecture to make that a thing. And that's, a lot easier said than done. It's, pretty complicated, and then someone else can spin up new nodes, and then you can fork off the chain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just becomes so difficult to actually censor payments, especially in pseudonymous systems where someone sees it comes from X to Y, but they don't know exactly who is behind each one unless, they do some forensics, etc. It just becomes very difficult to censor. This isn't to say you cannot censor cryptocurrency payments. It's just that the censorship is likely to occur at the point of sale using third-party processing software. For example, let's just say you were buying a car or a house or something like that, and the company that processes that uses something that monitors crypto addresses to make sure it didn't come from some illicit something or other, or will only process it if you give proof of ownership and blah, blah, blah. Like, there could be ways that just as easily can ban you from using your money because of whatever you did or whatever you didn't do, right? And who knows these days. But the big difference is it's just much easier to just go around that barrier. It's much easier to just say, oh yeah, my payment processor is, sketchy with this. I'll just send it to me directly, and you can just address to address, bam, it just goes. Obviously a little more complicated than that, but basically you can run an entire infrastructure, an entire economic infrastructure without these choke points. And then it just becomes so much harder to actually meaningfully censor payments. Fourth is privacy. Now, this is a tricky subject because most cryptocurrencies are pseudonymous, right? That doesn't mean they're anonymous. You can scan a blockchain and see where the money came from. It's very radically transparent. In fact, a lot more than a lot of fiat currency systems. The big difference is because it's open and permissionless, anyone could be behind those addresses. Anyone could be behind the funds. You don't really know. And because of that, you can always do forensics. You can always do blockchain analysis. You can always kind of tie people behind the payments and the addresses, but that takes a whole lot more work. And there's plenty of ways you could do to kind of make sure you don't have direct connections to your money that's moving around on the internet. You can, use coin join mixing. You can use some more privacy enhanced coins. You can, et cetera, et cetera. There's ways you can kind of enhance that. Whereas with the fiat currency system, if you're using cash, it's pretty private. The problem is you can't use cash across distances. You can't use it virtually. It just doesn't work that way. You can mail an envelope of cash, but that's horrendously insecure. Whereas with cryptocurrency, you can send it anywhere to anyone for any purpose, and it just kind of goes. And any electronic way of sending fiat currency today basically requires your ID and all this kind of stuff and ties your name to the money flows. And it's just really hard to obfuscate that. Whereas with cryptocurrency, if you care enough, you can basically be a ghost online. Yes, governments will always figure out a way to compromise your privacy in some way or shape or form on either the whole or just for specific targets, but it's just going to be a lot harder to do. It's just not going to be the privacy nightmare that the fiat system is today.
Tax authorities are so behind that they're literally asking crypto development companies for a list of transactions associated with certain individuals. They won't always be this backwards, but it underscores how different things will become. They won't be able to just ask someone who did what with their money. What used to be a simple request will be a forensic investigation.
And finally, and possibly surprising, I think that this will lead to much more efficient and user-friendly taxation, and much more voluntary too. I mean, I hate to say it like this, but I think it's going to make taxes better, which no one really wanted that. People wanted less of it or none at all, but I think that the current morass of systems of how you pay taxes, how things are collected, is not going to work on the new system when it's just so easy to send and receive money, so easy to obfuscate activity. Of course, you always run the risk of getting busted for that. And so I think that will naturally cause a meeting in the middle where a lot of people will just say, you know what, I do want to pay all my taxes. I just can't deal with this nonsense. I can't deal with how complicated they are to just basically pay. And so it might be in the future that automated every time you receive a payment into your wallet, into wallets you control or whatever from someone else, you automatically split off your portion of taxes on that, and just becomes more efficient. Or, if you're a business, your payment processor, it automatically splits off a part of all your income out, and it just sort of keeps track of that. And then at the end of the year, based on your expenses, you can get an automatic refund for whatever. I don't know, however it'll work, but it'll be a lot easier and more efficient than just the current onerous accounting requirements and then having to file and guess how much you owe. This is especially US based, right? Guess how much you owe, and then, whoa, did they buy it or not? If not, there's an audit. Oh no, it's just, the system's so terrible. I think that it'll become a lot more efficient to pay your taxes, a lot happier to pay your taxes when crypto really takes off and becomes the mainstream form of payment. And on the other side, because of the censorship resistance, the privacy, the efficiency, all that kind of stuff, there's always an easier option to not pay. Doesn't mean you should, of course, again, big disclaimer at the beginning and all that. But because of that, I think that the way society is going to evolve will be towards more voluntary kind of forms of payment. So, for example, say you live in a community, so you can't get out of paying the base fire protection, police protection, whatever else. Maybe they'll always break your kneecaps if you don't pay those things. But then there's going to be a little bit more where it's all right, well, if you use the postal service at all, then you have to pay part of it, the postal tax, okay, just to keep that thing going. Or if you have toll roads or something, you got to do that. Or if you want to opt into social service this, and they're just going to be a little bit more of you can choose your level of participation in the system and pay for that, rather than right now, if you have money, they just take it and they spend it on whatever. There'll be a little bit more of a negotiated middle ground. I don't think it will be possible maybe in my lifetime, who knows if after that, I don't think it'll be possible to just opt out of the system entirely. Just nah, I'm not going to pay any taxes. I don't really see that happening soon, although that would be fantastic if it did. I just think that your degree of participation in the system will be a lot more negotiable in the future, thanks to just how easy it is technically to opt out of the system and then make them chase after you, whatever. I think in the interest of higher rates of compliance, of fewer rates of having to chase after someone and throw them in jail or whatever, in the interest of that, I think we'll move towards a more kind of voluntary system as well with that. As a parting thought on that, just remember that society does not shadow government. It's the other way around. Governments are frameworks that are built around current realities. And so reality is radically shifting. And the old framework is just not going to fit around the new reality. So I foresee the framework evolving to fit around this new system. All right, so finally, I am expanding on the How to Live on Crypto series. So obviously, that was a very popular series, and I will be making more videos on how to do that, because you should really be trying to live off crypto now before you're caught with the collapse of the old system. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for all my new shorter form content videos, little TikTok style stuff, also TikTok, also Instagram, also, all the rest of the stuff. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time.